Inshallah, I will welcome your questions, and I would appreciate if you just stand up and ask your question. Any question, inshallah, related, rather than writing, speak up, inshallah. So that will save our time. Yes. Alayhi salam.
So I have a question that a friend of mine asked me, okay, let's believe God exists. How will you prove the existence of Allah? Maybe you can answer.
I have two answers for this question. How much time do we have? It's 7:49. How much time do we have? Okay, I will. How much time do we have? 30 minutes? Okay. Alright, this brother asked a question that a friend of his asked him that how can we prove that Allah exists, right? Okay. Two answers. The first answer is that we don't have to prove. Why? The burden to prove that God exists does not lie on the people who believe that God exists. It lies on the people who do not believe that God exists. And let me prove how. This is the most important thing. You know, atheist or agnostic, they will simply say, well, you are the believers, therefore you claim God exists, so it is your responsibility to provide the evidence. Wrong. It is their responsibility to provide the evidence. How come? You have to understand the definition of claimant and defendant. Who is the defendant and who is the claimant? Or plaintiff. Defendant is a person who maintains his position. And claimant or plaintiff is a person who makes a claim against a status quo. For example, I live in my house. I've been living in my house for the last 30 years. And you come and you say, this house is not yours, the house belongs to me. And I say, well look, I have been living in my house, this house belongs to me. Who is the defendant and who is the plaintiff here? I am the defendant and you are the plaintiff. Why? Because I maintain the status quo and you are claiming against the status quo, right? So, who has to prove? If the case goes to the court, then burden to prove is on you or on me? It's on you. Why? Because you're going against the status quo, I am not. Now, let's apply the same analogy. People who believe in God, they maintain the status quo from day one, according to anthropology. From day one, from the time we have record about human being, human beings have been believing in God or gods. So they have been maintaining the status quo. But who is the first atheist? The first atheist was only 2300 years ago. His name is Democritus. It means human being, if we believe in evolutionary biology, human beings have been existed for last 100,000 years, and they have been believing in the concept of God. But 2300 years ago, a man comes and he says that I don't believe in God. So who went against the status quo? A person who rejected the concept of God. Therefore, he is the claimant. He is the plaintiff. Therefore, the right of burden is the burden to prove is on him, not on me. Okay? That is the first answer. The second answer, we have tons of arguments. We have tons of arguments. And we can go on and on. But a simple, the most basic argument is, give me one example, one tiny example from the whole universe, something that came into existence on its own. Something that came into existence on its own. I am not asking a complex being. I'm not asking. I am asking a simple being. The simplest existence that ever existed in this universe. Did it exist on its own? Or it has a cause? It will always has a cause. So if everything has a cause, the universe has a cause. That cause is called God. Now the question is that why do we call that cause God? The reason is that if that cause is does not have a decision-making power, then the effect, which is the universe, will have the same age as the age of the cause. You understand why? Because if the cause has no decision-making power, it was just a cause, then as soon as the cause existed, the effect existed. If the cause is eternal, the effect has to be eternal. If the cause of this universe is eternal, then the universe will be eternal. Is this universe eternal according to scientific theories? No. Therefore, the cause once upon a time decided to create the universe. Therefore, the cause has a decision-making power. And therefore, we call that cause God, because God has a decision-making power. Simple. It's called a commonsensical argument. Yes. Second question. Yes, Assalamu alaikum.
So sir, I've been thinking of asking this question. The reason being is I lost my very good friend of mine. This question is to actually everybody who is sitting here. That the huge community of the huge group of people the youth have been addicted to the drugs actually, which has been causing a problem. And due to which, as you told that morning people are becoming Muslim and then converting to
something else.
So what exactly are we doing about it? People indirectly, if I think that this consumption of drugs or whatever is taking them to a different path. And in top of that, in our corporate field, we have seen people Paki is actually our half of Iman, what the Hadith says. That we have seen our brothers, even for to do when they are going, they are not taking water. They are, become so addicted to things, which is making huge difference.
Okay.
So,
Jazakumullah khairan. So the brother has two questions. The first question is that there is a huge drug problem among youth, and this is one of those problems that might be leading them to out of Islam. The second is that there are many people who do not consider or practice the rules of purity in Islam. These two are different questions. The first question that you asked, definitely drug is a huge problem. It's a huge problem. And the community elders definitely have to sit down and do something about it. However, in the modern world, there are many techniques that if they are implemented, then we can easily get rid of drug usage and drug consumption. There are many rehab centers in big cities. I don't know if any of those exist here in Bangalore, but in big cities, rehab centers exist. So the thing is that proper counseling is required. Proper counseling is required. This young man will not just wake up one day and he will decide that, okay, from now on, I'm not going to consume drugs anymore. It's not going to happen. He will be ruining his life. The only thing that can stop him from ruining his life is a proper counseling. So proper counseling should be provided at the campus, among his relatives, his friend circles, and at the community level. Perhaps masajid, big masajid like this, need to come forward, and they have to provide these types of services to our youth, where they can come easily and they can talk to counselors about their issues. As for the second issue, obviously the iman has to be firm first for them to practice their deen. If iman is weak, why will they practice deen? Practice will become weak automatically if iman is weak. So these people, we need to work on making their iman firm, and inshallah you will see change in their life. Yes, any other question?
So I have actually two questions. So first, you started with something that based on I don't know everything. So that sounds okay. It's enough to kick out the arguments or confusions what are coming, but that doesn't sound logically correct. I mean, there is one other option that the confusions or osmosis what are coming that might be correct, because okay, so that thing what you are saying, I don't know everything, that might help you to get rid of the confusion, but that doesn't imply that the osmosis is correct.
That doesn't. What was the last sentence?
That osmosis.
Waswasa. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, that's the first question.
Okay, let me answer this question. So the brother is saying that I said earlier that I don't know everything. It might help you to get rid of some certain doubts, but it won't help you to get rid of waswasa, right?
So that doesn't imply that the waswasa is incorrect.
That doesn't imply that the waswasa is incorrect. Okay. Look, the answer to your question is that it is possible that the waswasa is correct, but this waswasa shouldn't be given an authority to capture your iman. Why? Because on the other hand, you are admitting your ignorance. Wasabis will come. We cannot control those wasabis, right or wrong. But can we give these wasabis an authority that they capture our iman? We will give them this authority only when we entertain them. And we will entertain them only when we think that we have some knowledge. But when we acknowledge our ignorance and we know that we may not have enough information about it, then we are not entertaining that waswasa. Example, there is a hadith, and by the way, a person became kafir because of this hadith. Hadith says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes down on the worldly heaven early in the morning at the tahajjud time. Perhaps you have heard this hadith. So this person, he told me this, direct discussion. He says that I read this hadith and I said, how is it possible for God to come down to change his location from one place to another? Because if he's changing his location, that means he's a bodily object. And if he's a bodily object, then he is not eternal. And if he's not eternal, then he's not qualified to be God.
That's a metaphysical hadith maybe.
But he entertained this waswasa because he had half-baked knowledge. If he had full knowledge about the hadith, that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes down at that particular time, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not saying that physically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes his location. It is his mercy that comes down at his time. Now you rejected the waswasa from its root because you had knowledge. But if you admitted that you had no knowledge, maybe my understanding of the hadith is wrong. Yes, I have this waswasa, but my understanding of the hadith is wrong. That means you are not giving an authority to that waswasa. It will not drive away your iman. That's the whole point. Okay, these questions from the crowd? Yes, please ask. You want this? You want? If you know the question by heart, you can ask me.
The question is, what's our answer to the punishment that's been prescribed by Islam for iqtidar against freedom of expression or freedom of religion?
Good question. I was expecting that. And I thought, how come nobody asked this question yet? Especially in the light of an incident that took place day before yesterday in New York. I don't know if you are aware of it. So let's not talk about that. The punishment of apostasy in Islam. Does Islam honor freedom of expression? We see that in liberal societies, freedom of expression is a very important value and people enjoy this. Let me ask you one question. We live in India. We have a democracy here. Our parliament is situated in Delhi. It's a symbol of democracy. Tomorrow in Bangalore, some people express their opinion and enjoy their freedom of expression, and they say that we are forming our own parliament here in Bangalore. We will have our own prime minister and our own president. We're not following Delhi anymore. What's going to happen? You don't have this freedom, my brother. You are going to jail the same morning. It is called sedition against the country. Why? Because you are going against the policy of the state. You are going against the policy of the state. So you cannot freely express your opinion if your opinion is against the policy, fundamental policy of the state. Now, if we have an Islamic state, we don't live in an Islamic state, suppose there is an Islamic state, perfect Islamic state, suppose we live in Khilafah Rashida. The fundamental policy of Khilafah Rashida was Iman. This is the fundamental policy. If a person accepts Iman and then he denounces it, it means he is going against that fundamental policy. It is sedition against the state. Therefore, the state has a right to impose certain punishments. So, sedition charges are applicable everywhere. They are in just different forms. Just like we do not have absolute freedom in a liberal democracy, when we go against the state policy, people who become apostate in an Islamic state, they actually denounce the state policy and therefore they are punished. You understand this analogy? When we are in a non-Muslim state, such as India, then we have, and I repeat, we do not have any right to implement any punishment on people who denounce Islam. We do not have that right. We cannot take law in our hand. Islam does not tell us to behead those people who leave Islam or even who criticize Islam if we are living in a state where Islamic laws are not in place. Understand? Yes.
So we see this democratization of knowledge in one way, and that is also, in my opinion at least, is leading the youth accessing information which they not be ready for.
Yeah.
And sometimes that leads them to also certain levels of doubt which they are never equipped to deal with, because they talk about epistemic level. Sometimes it goes on me. So how do we reconcile with that challenge? And linked to that, in my opinion, also is that how the youth themselves don't feel so connected to the masajid so much, in my opinion at least. How do we deal with that as well?
It's a very good question, mashallah. See, you answered the question yourself that many times they're not connected to the masajid. I say that even if they're connected to the masajid, many times their problems are not solved. Why? Because, unfortunately, and without any offense, we ourselves, the religious figures, the imams, the scholars, are we trained enough to respond the doubts of our youth? We are not. This is our problem. And this is a problem that we acknowledge. And I hope that I have enough resources that I can work to solve this problem. I wish that I will do it inshallah one day. But if we have our religious figures, religious scholars who are equipped with tools that they can easily clear the doubts from the minds of our youth, and then those youth are connected to the masajid, this problem will never rise. So we have, of course, the information is not far from one click. Everything is available on the internet. But just ask yourself this question. When you fall sick, there are many medical websites. You don't go to those websites and you simply diagnose yourself and you just prescribe the medication and you just say, well, problem solved, I'm not going to the doctor, I'm not paying any money, no hospitalization, nothing, and I will be cured tomorrow. It never happens. The remedy is there, the cause is there, the prescription, everything is there. But we don't rely on those websites. The information is there, we do not rely. As soon as it comes the matter of deen, we rely on Google. So how do we trust that information in matters of our deen, which is far more important, if we do not trust on that information in the matter of our health? Yes.
So there is a saying where it is said that we don't know what is there inside mother's home, and we also don't know where the rain will come, what time and what location. So what is the exact word that is used in the hadith or Quranic ayat, and how do we interpret it?
Brother asked the question that there is an ayah in the Quran in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that nobody knows what's in the womb of the mother. Only He knows. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْأَرْحَامِ. That's the ayah. So usually people say that, well, now we can easily tell what is in the womb of the mother. So we can easily identify or understand or know the gender of the fetus. So, is this ayah irrelevant? No, it is not. And this is the beauty of the Quranic text. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses every single letter, not a word, every single letter for a reason. The ayah says وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْأَرْحَامِ. The ayah does not say وَيَعْلَمُ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْحَامِ. There is a huge difference between ma and man. If the ayah was وَيَعْلَمُ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْحَامِ, the translation would be, and only Allah knows who is in the womb of the mother, male or female. The ayah doesn't say that. Ayah says Allah knows what is in the womb of the mother. Meaning at that stage, at that very, very prime early stage, when no scientific or technological device detect the gender, even at that time Allah knows the gender. And not only the gender, Allah knows the destiny, and Allah knows what he is going to eat and what he will be deprived of, when he exactly at what moment he will be born and what moment he will die. Can any scientific or technological device detect any of these things? The word ma includes all this information. Yes.
There is one verse in the Quran like "Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut." So I just wanted to know what is the correct meaning of nafs here.
Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut. The brother is asking that, he wants to know that what is the correct meaning of nafs here. Very good question. There are two types of ruh in our body. One is called ar-ruhul hayawani and the other is called ar-ruhul rabbani. Ar-ruhul hayawani is responsible for our worldly life, for our bodily life. If that ar-ruhul hayawani if that ruh is out of our body will become dead. Ar-ruhul rabbani never dies. After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created it, and every single body, be it kafir or Muslim, has that ar-ruhul rabbani. So that ar-ruhul rabbani is only transferred from one location to another, from this alam al-dunya to alam al-barzakh, from barzakh to alam al-hashar, from one place to another. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says kullu nafsin za'iqatul maut, nafs here means ar-ruhul hayawani, not ar-rabbani. Yes.
Do we really have to go to the so-called ex-Muslim channels, as you know, Sahil, Zamir, or Sachwala?
Wow, they are so popular.
My question is, what I have noticed is, like, there are lot of moves who go into the channels and nothing but just pushing their agenda. So one suggestion is, please tell through your channel that any person who doesn't have enough knowledge should not go.
मेरे ख्याल से I think I made this announcement hundreds of times on my social media platform.
I have watched it hundreds of times.
And look, he is a witness. That for God's sake, Khuda ke liye, protect your iman. If you do not have knowledge, why in the world you feel the need, the urge of going there? What's the point? You want to defend Islam? First equipped with Islam, then defend it. How can you defend something that you are not equipped with its basic information? So do not visit their channel. By visiting their channel, by watching those videos, actually you are promoting their agenda. So do not do that. Do not put your share in their kufr. Yes.
So you said that 23 to 25% of the Ummah in US has kind of apostatized, and like that's probably a trend where like Muslims in more developed countries or more educated Muslims are more likely to apostatize or more likely to fall to liberalism and atheism. And that might also be because like when you send the children to those kind of schools, their fitra gets corrupted, and after a point it's not even about doubts, it's just like their fitra is so corrupted they're not even interested in hearing your arguments. So how do you counter that, and how do you deal with people who've already fallen for that?
Okay. Here's a very interesting observation and a very accurate observation. He uses the word fitra, and that is the base of our iman. He says the fitra is corrupted. Where did you learn this term?
Online.
Daniel Haqiqat.
Daniel Haqiqat.
He uses this term a lot, mashallah. He's a good friend of mine. So, yes, when you send young children to those environments where they are day and night glorifying and majestifying liberalism and scientism, then obviously the fitrah will be corrupted. Then on top of that, when these children come back home and they have conversation with their parents at a dinner table, they never get the satisfying answer. They only get a shut up call. Don't talk about it. And they say, well, okay. And then after a few days, when they grow up, they leave Islam. This is the problem, a big problem. How are we tackling it? We're not tackling it. We're not doing anything at all. The Muslims in the West have all the resources in the world, and they have possibilities that they can have their 100% Islamic schools. They have many Islamic schools already. But what are they teaching in those Islamic schools? Same evolutionary, glorified science? Same liberalism? They have everything same. So we need to have our own curriculum, our own syllabus in our own Islamic environment. That's the only way we can tackle the situation. Unfortunately, we cannot have more questions. This is on time. Jazakumullah khairan. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah.